during that Diddy segment on Piers Morgan, Cassie, yeah, she got exposed, and bad. The man on the left laid out the receipts like a surgeon with a scalpel, calculated and factual. Meanwhile, the woman they brought on to defend Cassie, she wasn't prepared. Couldn't hold water in a bucket with two hands. No logic, no receipts, just vibes and victim tears. And you could feel it. Cassie's entire story cracked under pressure. The room shifted. Because when you strip away the emotions and get down to the facts, Cassie wasn't looking like a hostage. She was looking like a willing participant in a luxury deal gone left. What you witnessed wasn't a debate. It was a dismantling. Efficient, brutal, and fair. Now you know it's bad when Piers Morgan, who usually plays devil's advocate for sport, ends up siding against Cassie. That's when the cracks are showing. The debate started off simple. Will Diddy beat the charges? And let's be honest, nobody's expecting him to walk away clean. But when they got to that racketeering charge, everything shifted. That's the one with real weight. That's life on the table. Then even Piers, by the end, couldn't stand on Cassie's side with a straight face. Once the air clears, people are starting to see that this isn't just about the headlines. It's about federal consequences.
She's heading from being a sort of open slam dunk shut case for the feds to potentially a sensational acquittal. What is your view of where we are with this?
It can go either way. Good morning, by the way. Here's my position. Without question, they've not proven that there's been any corporation or organization that was organized for the purposes of satisfying P. Diddy's sexual needs. Bad Boy Enterprises was formed, I think, in 1998. And the government's alleging that this RICO statute covers those actions of finding Bad Boy Productions. So I think it was like 50 or 60 platinum albums before Cassie even came on the scene. I think that's a horrible failure by them. I don't know if he's walking on everything, but I can tell you I have real issues with the RICO part of this because it's silly to think that when he founded Sean John Jeans, he was really doing that with the knowledge that someday in the future he would meet Cassandra Ventura, and then lure her into a life of voyeurism and swinging and all of the things that went on it. Understanding that right now his jeopardy, the jeopardy he faces is based upon the horrendous conduct of what he did to that woman in that video. There's no other evidence other than Cassie in this case. And everyone can sit there and wring their hands and say, oh, you know, poor Cassie. And I agree. What he did was horribly wrong. But Cassie also has opened herself up to a little bit of criticism when she says, it's not about the money, but I want $10 million from the Intercontinental Motel, which starts to make it seem like it's about the money. And as these horrific images of the video kind of become not as hot as they were before, you start looking at facts. And you go, wait a minute. He was in charge of her, yet she was cheating with Kid Cudi, who was his former employee. She was cheating with his former trainer. She had her own apartment. She had her own money. And with 8 men on the jury, this case might have been won in jury selection, because I'm telling you, from the people I've listened to and the many of the different people who've spoken about this, there's some issues about whether or not this is a proper case for a RICO charge. Start to wondering if the only witness you have and the only charges you have is that he beat up that woman, which he certainly did. But I'm going to tell you one thing, the defense is certainly going to tell the jury, please convict my client of every single charge of domestic violence there is. Every one of them. Because there are no charges of domestic violence.
Cassie booked the men, paid the men, and even covered their travel. That's prostitution. On paper. But she's being painted as a scared, helpless victim. They want the jury to believe that she was too terrified to say no. But somehow, not too scared to cheat, sneak, and flirt behind Diddy's back? Diddy never swiped a card. But he's the one on trial for racketeering. Meanwhile, the one who funded it is protected. Try selling that to 8 grown men who know what manipulation looked like. That's like crashing the car and blaming the passenger.
I appreciate the passion. I do. But he's charged under the White Slave Trafficking Act, which requires that he paid somebody to come out here to have sex. I haven't heard anyone testify or read in any transcript that anyone testified that Sean Combs himself paid anyone. Have you heard that, Piers?
Piers interviewed the male escort that Cassie was involved with. Dude called himself the Punisher. After that combo, Piers completely changed his stance. The guy made it clear everything was consensual. Cassie wasn't just involved. She enjoyed it. She ran the play. So this idea that Cassie was powerless, scared, and forced, that whole narrative falls apart once you hear it from the man that was in the room.
I've not heard that any one of these people
we had this character called the Punisher on, who was a male prostitute, and he was actually a very eloquent guy to interview. And he made it crystal clear that over an 18-month period, it was Cassie that did all the negotiating with him and facilitated all the payments. And in fact, Diddy was, you know, a kind of bit part player sitting naked in the corner watching the Punisher having sex with Cassie, who had arranged everything. So I can still see how that could be construed by a skillful lawyer as a form of coercion. But as Bill Maher said at the end, at the end of his show on Friday, when you have somebody like Cassie Ventura and she's talking about her love of freak-offs and can't wait to do them, it is hard, I would imagine, to sit in the jury and think, why would she say that? if she didn't actually enjoy them.
Now, Ariel's a lawyer representing women accusing Diddy, so of course, she's pushing the worst narrative possible. And while Diddy's no saint, labeling him a trafficker, I still don't see it. This is the same woman who backed a woman falsely accusing Chris Brown until he dropped receipts and shut that down. So her track record? Questionable at best. When Piers brought it up that the escort said that Cassie was enjoying it and she took the lead, Ariel deflected, claiming Cassie couldn't think for herself because Diddy was too powerful. So once again, Cassie's grown, but somehow not responsible.
And that's the big difference between, we can talk about.
Well, quickly, Ariel, quickly, and I'll come back to Matthew on that point.
Yeah, sure. I think the problem here with the question you just asked was the understanding of what being a woman in love with a man would do. So I think a lot of this is being, of course.
Would you have, well, okay, but let me be direct, Ariel, let me be direct to you. Let me be direct.
Sure.
I don't know anything about your life. I don't know if you're married, not married, in a relationship with whoever. But let me just ask you, would you arrange for somebody whose name is the Punisher to come and have sex with your partner for money?
If my man was a billionaire who had the influence, the reach, the power of someone like P. Diddy, and he not only is my man, but he is my boss, and he has my life in his hand. And that's what he told me he was into. And that's what he told me he needed from me. How do I not do that?
Now, doing something for love isn't a crime. If your girl agrees to a threesome, then months later she says she only did it to make you happy, that's not coercion. That's regret. But now that regret turns into trafficking, I still don't see it. Even Piers was shocked, like, you're telling me a grown woman can't say no? Can't think for herself? She booked it, asked for it, and then texted about enjoying it and doing it again. But now it's a crime because she ain't feel the same about it later? Delusion. And Piers wasn't buying it either.
Whether or not I like it or don't like
Really?
it, what choice do I have?
Well,
what choice? Seriously, let's talk about it. What choice does she
you have
have?
every
I know a
choice.
ton of people who tried to go away from Diddy, who tried to leave him, we'll call it, and they were not successful. He blackballed them. He hurt them. He tried to kill them. I mean, it's. I think the thought process of why people are being dense, like they don't understand
but
why
the
she would
Punisher
have
told
done
me.
that,
But
being
hang
in the
on, okay.
position that she was in.
Now, we all know Diddy's a terrible person, but be careful if you're agreeing with folks like Ariel. Her logic? Cassie couldn't leave because Diddy's gonna cut off her access, her lifestyle, her resources, her comfort. And that's supposed to be a crime now? So let's break it down. If staying in a relationship out of fear of losing perks is called coercion, then half the country just got a case. That's like your girl staying with you because she loves the private chef meals and the courtside seats. Then crying coercion when it ends? If that's where the legal line is now, then it's open season. Now, hate Diddy all you want. He earned that. But if they can spend all that into trafficking, just imagine what they can do to the average man.
Punisher told me that she actively enjoyed it, that they had a really good time over 12 months. They met a dozen times. I think. No, I'm sorry. I think it was over. Hang on. It was actually a longer. It was actually a longer period. I think it was over a 2-year period, and they met up to a dozen times. And she was always, according to him, having a perfectly good time.
And
according to him, did he know whether or not she was drugged? Yeah, I mean, we all know she was not herself. We all know she clearly had to go to rehab for some type of substance abuse.
All right, let me bring Matthew in.
And I think for him to say, go ahead.
Okay, Matthew. So
here's the mistake. Here's the mistake everyone keeps making. That woman who took the stand this month is not the woman we're talking about from 13 years ago. She may be a perfectly spectacular mother, wife, significant other today. The charges go back as whether or not she was calling men up who are the Punisher and say, come over and do what you do, and then paying them. And the correct response, if someone says, hey, I would really like to do A, B, and C, you say, no, thank you. I don't want to have someone do A, B, and C unless you want to do A, B, and C. He is a domestic violence defended, or should have been, without question. You cannot say that when someone sets up a freak off when Diddy's not even there, in between screwing his trainer and his other employee, that she's hopelessly helpless in this entire scenario. And you have 8 people on that jury who who have unfortunately been through or know someone who's had someone who's cheated on them repeatedly. And every part of this case is based upon whether or not Cassie is credible and believable. And one thing the defense is going to say, we're not talking about this wonderful, talented, pregnant woman here. We're talking about the woman who, as Piers points out, called the Punisher to come back over and over and over and over and over and over and over again over a period of years. That's rather difficult to believe that this is a person
she was in a relationship with Diddy. Like, are we going to keep glossing over the fact you guys act like Cassie was doing this on her own?
Okay, as Bill Maher said, at some point in time, you have to take responsibility for your life. It's just not her man, though. But it's just not her man, though. It's just not her man, though. First of all,
it is her boss.
Let's be clear.
It is the man who is in control of her life. So to just quantify it in such a way where it's just her man, that is incorrect.
Now, you guys have to let me know in the comments. I can't be the only man who knows a lot of women who will walk away from fame and money before they sell their dignity. Cassie didn't. She chose a lifestyle, even if it meant sleeping with hundreds of men, just because she didn't want to lose that billionaire access. That's a choice, not coercion, and definitely not trafficking. She's staying because she didn't want the bills to stop. And to be honest, in my opinion, that's on her. But hey, if you made it this far, click the left side of your screen to see what really sparked the beef between Diddy and 50 Cent and why it'll never end. And also, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share to be aware, put me in that algorithm because I need to be there, man. Because I know there's 10 other streamers out there doing it like me, but...
Fuck that little 10. I'm maxed out.